Simon & Schuster Audio, in association with CBS News Productions, presents Charles Kuralt's Summer, written and read by Charles Kuralt.
What are the most beautiful words in the English language? I think Henry James was right. He said the most beautiful words in the English language are summer afternoon. Those 5 singing syllables carry careless joy in them and the lazy light of the summer sun. You can't say the words summer afternoon without thinking of games of tag in dusty side yards, and fly lines curling above sparkling trout rivers, and family reunions with dinner on the grounds, iced tea in Dixie cups, and ice cream from the hand-cranked freezer, and 4 kinds of cake and 5 kinds of pie, and smothering hugs from nearly forgotten great aunts in flowered dresses. Sometime in my life I must have done some work on summer afternoons, but I can't remember it. I remember swinging in a swing my grandfather hung from the limb of a sycamore tree. That was when I was 4. I remember the bright green infield of a minor league ballpark and the promise of the game to come. That was when I was 14. I remember sweating along alone on a trail in the high Sierra, looking for a place to lay down my backpack burden and pitch a tent for the night. That was when I was 40. I remember the hot sand of Atlantic beaches and the smell of Midwestern hayfields. I remember looking for a 4-leaf clover in a southern meadow and finding one before the light faded and the fireflies came out. You will have your own memories of summer. Here are some of mine. This is the first full week of summer. These are the longest days of the year. For these few days at the end of June, the most northern places of the northern hemisphere, the dark, cold, sun-starved places in winter, become the sunniest places of all, and that is cause for celebration. For thousands of years, beginning in prehistory, the Swedes have come blinking into the light at the beginning of summer and lifted their faces to the sun and felt music rising inside them. On Midsummer's Day in Scandia, Minnesota, they dance on the grass of the old Lutheran parsonage, just down the hill from the oldest Swedish church in the state. The church is Christian, of course, but the greenery over the door is pure pagan Viking sun worship. And so is the maypole, even if they do set up the birch branches nowadays in the shape of the cross. Swedes from Sweden dance here among Swedes from Minnesota. This goes back farther than Christmas and New Year's and the 4th of July, this urge in northern people to find a green meadow and dance on Midsummer's Day. And oh, the sweet traditions.
They say that any unmarried girl should go into the woods on Midsummer Day, and she picks 7 different kinds of wildflowers. She puts them under her pillow that night, and whoever young man she dreams about that night is the man she's going to marry.
And the trolls. This is the day the trolls come out from their hiding places in the barns and the fields. Ethel Hedman knows them. Every Swede knows them.
We have a cousin in Sweden who had a huge troll that lived in their woods. And on Midsummer Day, they always have to feed the trolls, too. This is a special time when these Tomtons they like rice pudding.
Of course, in Scandia, Minnesota, they're celebrating more than the summer solstice. They are celebrating themselves and their stolid tenant farmer forebears, like those of Opal Peterson.
And they came to this country and eked out a living with nothing. We had nothing to start with. My grandfather came with just the clothes on his back. And he dug in the earth, and he was able to fell trees and plant and produce and save money. Can you imagine, in 4 years to bring a family from Sweden? In order for me to to live here in America and be free, and it's just fantastic.
Really, it is, of course, just fantastic.
You see, when I came here, all I could say in English was ham and eggs. So when I rode from here to Minneapolis on the bus or to Denver, Colorado, all I was eating was ham and eggs.
They are celebrating themselves and how far they've come, and the place they started from.
I come back here and I'm a little child again. I'm, my father's and my mother's daughter, and I'm not a grown woman with grandchildren.
Everybody should have a place to come home to, and one day to feed the trolls and gather wildflowers and dance in the meadow. Scandia, Minnesota is such a place, and this is the day.
Everybody is sweet for a day. Ain't it grand? Right? Yeah?
Just across the border from Minnesota, in a little Wisconsin town, they have their own way of celebrating summer, and one summer 20 years ago I celebrated with them. Like so many summertime rituals, this one involves A, giving up your dignity, and B, getting good and wet. This is the biggest industry of Somerset, Wisconsin. What is? This is tubing on the Apple River. People have gone inner tubing on the Apple for more than 50 years, or as long as there have been inner tubes. But in the last 10 years, like everything else in America, tubing has gone big time. And now, Somerset, which has only 729 people, has 15,000 inner tubes. And some summer weekends, they're all rented out. What you do is you go out to a place called River's Edge, 4 miles up the Apple, get yourself a tube, and head for town. You head for town by sitting down and letting the Apple River do the rest. Youths may cavort along the way. Aging correspondents mostly cool it, enjoying the cow and corn country scenery and the company of veteran tuber Bob Raleigh. Hey, I think I hear white water behind us. Is this dangerous anywhere along the line?
Well, it can be if you have an extraordinary large bottom.
Well, you're in trouble.
If you don't have a big enough inner tube. From the starting point, for a half a mile or so, it's relatively fast. Once you get down the ways, the river slows down an awful lot, widens out, becomes very tranquil, peaceful. One could almost fall asleep on the tube. You wouldn't be bothered by anyone. You'd eventually end up down in Somerset, and somebody'd wake him up. If someone didn't wake him up, the rapids would.
Tubing in Somerset, which started in the 20s as a diversion, has become in the 70s an institution, fabled in story and song, like the song Perry Lovell sings every night at River's Edge on the banks of the Apple.
It's fun in the sun, we're on cloud number 1. There's a rock up ahead in your way. Can't wait to hear the rapids up ahead. You know the feeling is ever so fine. Over and down, around and about, in your rental tube and mine. You know we're just tubing in Somerset. Got nothing to do all day. With a good friend along, you can float to the line. It's just a 2-hour ride all the way. It's a long way to go, from the top to the bottom below. Watching the girls on the side, just taking things in on the ride.
Floating down this river, it's possible to feel sorry for presidents and kings who've always had to content themselves with yachting on the Potomac or punting on the Thames. Poor fellows, they never had a chance to go tubing on the Apple.
Hurry up!
I used to think of America in terms of highways and state lines. Then I got to know the country better and started thinking of it as rivers. I found myself frequently admiring rivers from the shore, and whenever possible in summertime, on a steamboat or a john boat or a raft or canoe, from the rivers themselves. I wrote about rivers a lot, but on a certain anniversary in the summer of 1984, I had the good sense to let America's greatest writer on the subject speak for himself. If I had to say as much about America as I possibly could in only 2 words, I would say these 2 words: Huck Finn. But I wouldn't say them here. I'd say them here. This is the Mississippi. We didn't want to let this summer drift by without mentioning that 1984 is the centennial year of Mark Twain's great story, the one he called Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. We've known Huck for 100 years now. For 100 years, we've known the meaning of the river. Mark Twain had been a pilot on the river. He learned to read the Mississippi. Then he wrote the river down so all the rest of us could read it too. He wrote it down in the most American voice anybody has yet managed. The voice of a 14-year-old boy who meant to float down this river on a raft, away from the grown-up world which chafes and binds and makes no sense. Huck was seeking freedom on the river, and his companion, Jim, the runaway slave, was seeking freedom. Sometimes, Huck says, we'd have the whole river to ourselves. Yonder was the banks and islands across the water, and maybe a spark, which was a candle in a cabin window. And sometimes on the water you would see a spark or two, on a raft or scow, you know. We had the sky up there, all speckled with stars, and we used to lay on our backs and look up at them and discuss whether they was made or only just happened. Once or twice in the night we would see a steamboat slipping along in the dark. Then she would turn a corner and her lights would wink out and her powwow shut off and leave the river still again. And after that you wouldn't hear nothing, for you couldn't tell how long, except maybe frogs or something. Next, we slid into the river and had a swim so as to freshen up and cool off. Then we sat down on the sandy bottom where the water was about knee-deep, and we watched daylight come. Not a sound anywheres, perfectly still, just like the whole world was asleep. We said there warn't no home like a raft after all. Other places do seem so cramped up and smothery, but a raft don't. You feel mighty free and easy and comfortable on a raft. I think now we all have a secret. I think we all have the same secret. It is that Huck was right. The grown-up world up there on the banks of the river chafes and binds and makes no sense. And we have in us what Huck had in him, the wish recurring to give up Sunday school and rules and manners and custom and routine, to drift away from all that and be free. Huck knows he has to keep moving or he'll be caught up again in civilization. I can't stand it, he says. I've been there before. We've all been there. Mark Twain wrote our secret down in a book 100 years ago this year, and freed us in visions or in daydreams to float away down the monstrous big river, indifferent to time and destination, watching the snags drift by, watching the sun go down, and giving not a damn for whatever might be happening on shore. There is a good time for getting in touch with Mark Twain, midsummer, and a good place, Hannibal, Missouri. After all these years, Mark Twain wrote, I can picture that old time to myself now just as it was then, the great Mississippi rolling its mile-wide tide along, the white town drowsing in the sunshine of a summer's morning, the streets empty or nearly so, one or two clerks sitting in front of the stores on Water Street. Presently a drayman lifts up the cry, "Steamboat a-comin'," and the scene changes. All in a twinkling, the dead town is alive and moving. Well, Hannibal is still there, though it's the tour bus which arrives now instead of the steamboat. And in the Tom Sawyer days of summer, Hannibal delights to honor its most famous son by whitewashing for the 1000th time that immortal fence.
And first to the boards, it looks like number 10, Ronnie Rickman of Madison, Wisconsin, and he is really a speedster. Second in command right now.
Our delight was to watch Stan Earhart, who is 8 years old, about the age of Tom Sawyer's brother Sid, pulling for his brother Steve, who is about the age of Tom Sawyer. It's a competition now, and neatness counts, but not much.
Steve Earhart of Hannibal, Missouri. Right now the judges are judging the neatness of the work performed.
Steve, come on.
In truth, boyhood in Hannibal is not so much changed. Steve and Stan Earhart still attempt that most impossible of youthful achievements, to catch a tadpole in a creek without a bucket. Young Steve Earhart carries papers in the afternoon as young Sam Clemens did, and the paper he carries is the very one on which Mark Twain started out in life as a printer's devil. The summer air still is charged with dreams, and if Steve Earhart dreams not of becoming a pirate, but rather of becoming a cardinal, that is only a measure of a recent substitution of heroes. Lou Brock in for Blackbeard. Hannibal childhood has always been full of adventure. Ask the old men. Scott Meyer remembers.
The mothers never had to worry about where their sons were because 99 times out of 100 they were down at the river bathing, sometimes without benefit of adornment and sometimes with. If there was a bunch of women and girls and all come and watch us, anything like that, we might have to take a longer swim than we wanted to because we had to stay ducked.
Could you swim across the river?
Oh, yes. I've swum the river here. It's about 5/8 of a mile from here over to the island. And I've got a little granddaughter who swims it now. She's only 9 years old.
Get set. Go. And first to the boards is Steve Earhart. No?
Childhood in Hannibal is changed only by the ambitions of the times. Scott Meyer's granddaughter swims the river, which Becky Thatcher never did. Steve Earhart races to paint the fence Tom Sawyer schemed to avoid painting. But for kids then and now, the Missouri summer is warm, pastimes innocent, and victory sweet.
And your winner for 1975 from Hannibal, Steve Earhart.
Mark Twain's house still stands in Hannibal, its old windows shining in the sun. The house will never fall down, unless it is by weight of all the plaques affixed to it. And Tom and Huck will always walk together at the head of Main Street. Their Missouri town is neither northern nor southern, not an eastern town, surely, not western either. Hannibal is suspended in space and time, a place to be young in and never grow old, a place to splash through endless creeks in and never fall down, a place to run away from and to come back home to. Man is a dreamer. Tell him a simple story, and he'll make of it an heroic epic. Show him the farthest stars, and he'll try to imagine what's beyond them. Deposit him on a beach, and before you know it, he'll be building castles in the sand. He will do this compulsively and without invitation. All anybody needs to build a sandcastle is a low tide, an hour or two, and a flight of fancy. When you add the lure of a contest and a prize, as the Sheraton Sandcastle Hotel has done today at Sarasota, you get a beach full of dreamers, old and young.
Right, that's going to be the front. We got to make those little things. And there's going to be a gate right there. Hey, how...
A handful of sand is an anthology of the universe, a poet wrote. Many handsful, shaped and sculpted, become a mermaid, or a crocodile, or a parrot, or a whale. Dreams take different settings. They can be as mundane as a city street,
Why don't you bring it over here, Carol?
or as fanciful as Camelot. The world demands that we face reality. The beach invites us to forget all that. Edna St. Vincent Millay said it well. Safe upon the solid rock the ugly houses stand. Come and see my shining palace built upon the sand.
Now the grand prize. Number 8, Cinderella Slipper in the Prince's Castle.
It was a Cinderella's slipper that won the contest appropriately, and within an hour, most of the contestants were gone, back to the real world of cooking dinner and doing homework, and the tide was coming in. Dreams don't last. Castles crumble. Two things only are certain, that during the night the waves will wash the beach bare, and that in the morning some child will be out on the beach building a sandcastle. The sounds of summer are unmistakable, and some of them are also very rare. Back in 1982, I heard one of the rarest summer sounds of all. The woods of eastern Ohio, sunset and silence. Something weird is happening here. Moonrise. Out of the ground all around us, strange creatures are emerging by the millions. Otherworldly, creeping creatures with unnerving, unblinking, great bulging red eyes. They could come from a distant galaxy. They make no sound until dawn. When the sun comes up, their racket sounds like flying saucers coming in for a landing. That's what some people say. To me, it sounds like catfish frying. All this month, in every daylight hour, everybody in eastern Ohio has had to shout to be heard over the sound of the 17-year locusts. They aren't really locusts, they are cicadas, but they do emerge every 17th year. People who were around to hear the cicada parents make this same deafening sound in 1965 sort of forgot about it, until the offspring showed up this month to remind them. There's not a leaf or twig in this part of the state that doesn't have a cicada on it, caterwauling to attract a mate. Will you just listen to that? They are not from outer space, but I will say this. As far as this world goes, standing in one place and listening to a couple 100,000 red-eyed bugs all clamoring loudly for love is one of your eerier experiences. The female cicadas are particularly attracted to power mowers, apparently mistaking them for extremely loud and macho male cicadas. You can imagine how they feel about jackhammers. There is nothing else like this in the whole world of beast or bird or bug. These cicadas slept through the Watts riots and school busing and the worst of the Vietnam War and both Nixon administrations, and missed both Gerald Ford and Jimmy Carter, waiting for their day to come. And now, well, I mean, if you hadn't had any love for 17 years, you might climb a tree and buzz and whir and whistle, too. The cicadas do very little harm. They'll pretty much die out by the 4th of July, and everybody will forget about them until June 1999, when the offspring of this spring's emergence will emerge and raise their once in 17 years ruckus. I love the sounds of summer. Listen to this one. Now, you can't mistake that for a winter sound. That's the sound of a horseshoe encircling an iron stake. That's a summer sound. Around Eureka, California, if you can't make 85 ringers out of every 100 shots, you might as well not show up because you haven't got a chance. This was the World Horseshoe Championships, a convention of the best barn lot horseshoe pitchers who ever hustled a fellow farmer. They come mostly from places with names like Bremen and Plattsburgh and Arcanum, places where a man can while away an afternoon perfecting his style and listening to the satisfying clink of a drop-forged shoe encircling an iron stake. Thus. Oh, they're good. They're real good. And some of them are legendary, like Elmer Hole, a calm Canadian carpenter who is the defending champ, and Bob West, a lumber mill owner from Scappoose, Oregon, whose deadly aim is the talk of the tournament. And yet none of these sharp-eyed old-timers is any better than a 13-year-old boy from right here in Eureka, Deadeye Williams, who won the junior championship 2 years before we showed up, and again the next year, and was odds-on favorite to repeat. Cheered on by his horseshoe-playing mother and father in the stands, and his brother Jonathan, and his sisters Debbie and Cindy and Barbara, all horseshoe players. But Deadeye lost his title. And who'd he lose it to? Another brother, 12-year-old Jeff. Even when Deadeye and Jeff are just noodling around, as they were the day we met them, they still usually call out to the scorer 4 dead, which means 4 ringers, and thus no points for either player.
4 dead.
But when it came to play for keeps, Jeff dethroned Deadeye with the help of a fortuitous incident.
Well, he had a broken finger, and I beat him.
How did he get a broken finger?
I called him a name.
What did you call him?
I called him a girl.
And then what happened?
And then he was ready to hit me, and Barry said he wouldn't hit me, and then he hit me.
And he broke his finger?
Yeah.
And the next day?
Next day, he didn't win it.
You won it?
Yeah.
34 straight ringers is merely the stuff of daydreams for most farm boys, but it's what Jeff Williams did in fact. That's the way he won the junior title. Youth was not served so well when it came to the grown-up championships. Foxy old Elmer Hole, dueling tensely late into the night in a hushed arena, held off the challenge of 19-year-old Mark Siebold of Huntington, Indiana, to retain his title. Elmer was all smiles that night, but if he expects to remain the champ forever, he better think again. He knows about Deadeye Williams and Jeff Williams, but he may not know about Nathan. There's yet another Williams brother, you see. Nathan is 7. And one night, we watched him march to the 30-foot line, wind up with all his strength, and let fly. The smart money in horseshoes is keeping an eye on Nathan. Every now and then in wandering around America, we come across something we want to show you, not because there's any story to it, just because it's so beautiful. The San Francisco fog is like that. A great tide of fluff that comes rolling in from the sea almost every summer morning. It was just this sound we wanted you to hear. The concert of foghorns from the San Francisco Bay. Presumably, people who live here get used to it. But to the visitor, the fog, this fog, seems a misty miracle, and he searches his memory for anything like it in the world. And of course, it turns out, there isn't anything like it in the world. Only here, where the mountain ranges are broken by the mouth of this singular bay, does the fog, born of the chill of the sea and the warmth of the sun, tumble and swirl inland like this. So that means there must be more than beauty here. There must be a story, too. And we found ourselves a fog man to tell the story, Harold Gilliam, who celebrated the fog in his book, San Francisco Bay. There are foggy days and foggy days in this town, aren't they? They don't ever seem to be quite the same.
There's never 2 days in a row when the fog is alike. There are never 2 hours in a row when the fog is just the way it was the hour before. It's an infinite variation. I've never in 20 or 30 years of watching the fog here seen 2 days where the fog is just exactly alike.
Does the fog's behavior follow any patterns at all?
Well, it comes in cycles, really. It starts very low very often. It comes right on the water. You can see it coming through the Golden Gate here, sometimes even under the deck of the Golden Gate Bridge. You can drive across there and look down on the top of it. More often it comes in about the level of the deck of the bridge, and it rolls in. It may be a long finger of fog come rolling through the Golden Gate here, and it would hit Angel Island, which is over beyond Alcatraz. But every place around it would be in the sunshine. You see just this one mass of fog. It moves in like a glacier. I remember seeing it over in Twin Peaks very often, which is about 900 feet. When the fog gets up to that height, it rolls over Twin Peaks and comes down in a great rolling cascade, bounding and rebounding from the contours of the land. It may hit a protuberance of a ridge or even a building and go up like a wave in a big geyser of fog and then come back down again.
And the fog affects people's lives, doesn't it?
Oh, of course, yes. It affects, really, it affects the whole life of the coast, the animal life, the plant life, and obviously, of course, human life. For example, the redwoods along the coast grow only in the fog zone, where the fog comes in and keeps the area moist during the summers when there's no rain. It obviously affects all the other life, the ferns, the animal life that exists down there, and it affects the human life, because if this weren't a foggy coastline out here, I think it'd be ruined by people building hotels and resorts out there to be like Miami Beach or parts of Southern California, where it's been completely taken over. You don't have any wild coastline down there anymore because you don't have this fog. The fog protects us, in effect, from the bulldozers that come in to ruin our coastline.
Most afternoons, the sun breaks through, and the nebulous shapes and motions of the fog retreat for an hour or two. But then, toward evening, the music of the foghorns starts again.
Wasn't that a great sound? You get a great chorus, particularly when the fog is low. Chorus of all these horns. There may be 20 or 30 fog horns, and you get used to them. You hear them. You don't know you hear them. They're subconscious, sort of a subliminal thing. You're not conscious of them, but you know the fog is there subconsciously when you hear those horns. You may be asleep, and they come in at night during your sleep, and you may stir in your sleep, and you know then the fog is spreading around the bay and over the hills because you hear those horns. It's a great sound.
Sleep well, San Francisco. The morning will come. It'll be a little misty, but you're used to that. In all the world, fog like this belongs to nobody else but you. Somehow, I can never think about July 4th without thinking first about July 3rd. The 4th calls for fireworks and celebrations. The 3rd calls for reflection and regret. You see, in the great American tragedy, the Civil War, July 3rd, 1862, was the day the Battle of Gettysburg ended. Both dates have lessons to teach, and whatever happens from now on in the epic of America, both should be remembered always. The best place to remember July 3rd is on a silent hill at Gettysburg, Cemetery Ridge.
The most awful thing that ever happened on the American continent happened here. A soldier standing right here looked out across that hollow and saw, he said, an overwhelming, restless tide of an ocean of armed men sweeping upon us, as with one soul, in perfect order, over ridge and slope, magnificent, grim, irresistible. That Confederate ocean tide broke here on the Union Rock. When it was over, 50,000 Americans were dead, wounded, or missing. That was in the summer. In the fall, Lincoln came here to speak 10 sentences about the meaning of it all. He said this was a test of whether a nation could live with everybody in it equal and free. He said that idea of liberty and equality was saved in these fields, and keeping it safe is up to us now. He said the dead had done their part, and the world would never forget what they did here. He also said the world would not remember what he said here, and in that he was wrong. Americans of every generation looking for some meaning for the death of those who have left off their spring plowing to go to war still find it in what Lincoln said here, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
On the 4th of July, if you want to, you can think no patriotic thoughts at all. You can sleep late and go for a walk or putter in the garden. That's fine. It's a free country, as the 4th of July is supposed to remind us. But as for me, give me bands and ball games and barbecues. Give me flags and firecrackers on the 4th. Put another hot dog on the grill, I say, and see if there isn't one more cold beer down there at the bottom of the ice tub. And let me tell you about some Independence Days I have spent in Witwen and Salina and North Fork and New York and places in between.
On the Great Plains, the 4th of July comes right in the middle of the wheat harvest, but they stop work for this day and start up the polka bands. This was 1973. 4th of July at Salina, Kansas. Have a piece of watermelon. The big thing on the 4th of July in Salina was throwing baseballs at a target, which, when hit, dunked a pretty girl in a cattle tank full of water. In North Fork, California, they don't throw baseballs on the 4th of July. They throw axes. This is timber country, and the year I was there, they set up a big slab of Douglas fir with a beer can wedged into the center for a bullseye. North Fork, California has its own way of celebrating the birth of the nation. 4th of July, 1970. This day in North Fork brought the lumberjacks out of the logging camps and into town, toting the tools of their trade, shining steel, razor sharp. There's a can of beer in the center of that target, and they went through a couple of cases of beer before the day was done. Dyke Fink and Herb Punkin and Phil Music just couldn't miss. When do you ever get a chance to throw axes nowadays?
Well, they feed in the cookhouse from 5:30, and it don't get dark till 9 o'clock. What you going to do?
Go out and throw axes.
Well, you get tired of fishing, you get tired of hunting, so you throw axes.
How does it go in the logging camp? What are the rules?
There isn't any rules. The way we was doing it, just take turns throwing first and throw for his handle. And it gets kind of hard on handles, but...
You mean some guys are actually good enough to split another fellow's handle?
Well, not every shot, but about every fourth or fifth shot you can get one if you're lucky.
Teenaged farm girls getting dunked in cattle tubs and lumberjacks throwing axes at a beer can bullseye might strike visitors from abroad as a strange way to celebrate nationhood. But Americans understand these rituals. This is a weekend for coming together in strenuous crowds and feeling free, no matter how much trouble you have to go to do it. The little town of Whitwin, Wisconsin always goes to a lot of trouble on the 4th. I had a wonderful time with them in 1980. They start at dawn on the 4th of July, cooking chicken for a multitude and serving it on paper plates until the sun goes down and the skyrockets go off. And in the hot morning, they have a parade with bands and floats and little kids pulling their decorated red wagons. And the feature of the parade is always the women singing patriotic songs and wearing stars and stripes, marching down the street shoulder to shoulder and hip to hip, so that when you see them coming, they resemble an American flag moving down the street from curb to curb, or where the curbs would be if Whitwin had any. Here they come now, the Sauk County Extension Homemakers Chorus. 7 women in gowns they made themselves. Well, where can you buy gowns like that? Marching down the main street, the only street, of Whitwin, Wisconsin, 4th of July in a small town. You have no idea how much preparation goes into the 4th of July in a small town.
Seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He has loosed the fateful lightning of his terrible swift sword.
For hours this week, the Sauk County Extension Homemakers Chorus practiced in Norma Clavedatcher's side yard, worrying about staying in step, worrying about whether their stripes were straight. This may seem corny to you, but in dairy farm country where everybody grows up beside a cornfield, nobody is much embarrassed by corn. Don't look for Whitwin on the map, by the way. It's not on the map. Only 51 people live here when everybody is home. On the 4th of July, everybody is sure to be home. The 4th has been the biggest day of the summer for 100 summers. A day full of memories, like the memory of the cannon that Newt Whitwin used to shoot off at dawn every 4th of July.
There's a hill right up here where the school used to be, and her husband used to put a cannon up there and he'd shoot it off. That was always the first thing that happened on the 4th of July.
Woke everybody up.
Woke everybody up, including the cows.
One year, they say, when Newt's cannon went off, Della Spreckler was milking her cow. The cow jumped up and fell on Della, and she had to miss the parade while the doctor taped up her broken ribs. There are so many memories in a really small town where no social detail is ever forgotten. The 4-H kids will always remember being in the pageant down at the campgrounds. And just raising the grand old flag in midsummer every year brings back memories of the Model T races and calf chases and tugs of war and ice cream socials of all the 4ths of July gone by. And the crowds the crowds which come from Black Hawk and Denver and clear from Sauk City. This one day when the flags all fly, Whitwin is on the map.
Let Whitwin, Wisconsin, population 51, stand for every place where the bands play on the 4th of July, where the men of the town barbecue enough chicken to feed a multitude, where pretty high school girls ride on floats, each one hoping she'll be the one named Miss Sauk Prairie. In Whitwin, the Sauk County Homemakers Extension Chorus, marching down the main street, stayed right on key and kept their stripes straight. Glory, glory, hallelujah, and happy birthday to us all. I remember so many joyous Independence Days. Here's one you may remember too, 4th of July, 1976, the bicentennial of the United States of America. I was aboard the Eagle, the tall ship of the Coast Guard, as the day began.
Oh, that was a day. That was the most joyous day I've ever seen in New York. And there was one moment as the bicentennial parade of tall ships approached the lower tip of Manhattan when all the cannons of all the naval warships fired and all the bands played and all the fireboats in New York Harbor aimed their high-pressure hoses aloft and let loose towering fountains of water, tinted red, white, and blue, and the shore batteries boomed a 21-gun salute to the United States of America, and the crews of hundreds of sailing ships stood at attention in dress whites along the rails and yardarms. Well, I can never think of that instant without getting chills down my spine. It has just been a perfectly glorious day in New York Harbor. And these tall ships make a most unlikely sight. They really take you back into another time. And we can see Wainwright coming downriver now, the guided missile cruiser, which is the reviewing ship. There you can see the crew of the Navy ship preparing to exchange salutes with the young cadet crew of the Coast Guard's Eagle. And now the Eagle's cadet band is preparing to play her salute. It's funny. I can't remember what I was doing on any of my own birthdays, but the country's birthdays all come back to me now. Years ago, I used to go out to my friend Phil's house at the beach for the 4th of July weekend, and after breakfast on the 4th, we always used to have a reading of the Declaration of Independence. Phil always read the part about the outrages of King George III, read them loudly and with indignation. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages. And we'd all cheer and applaud. In '76, I went to Philadelphia, to the building known 200 years before as the Pennsylvania State House, and known to us as Independence Hall. And one night, after the crowds of tourists had gone home, I walked around alone in the room where the Declaration was first read aloud. There's a sunburst, on the back of the chair of the presiding officer. Ben Franklin said later he had wondered whether that sun was rising or setting. At length, he said, "I have the happiness to know it is a rising sun." If there is such a thing as hallowed ground, this one room, 40 feet by 40 feet, must be the place for Americans. Jefferson and Adams and the rest made us a free nation in this room, but that was not enough. A war had to be fought. The captured banners of the British Army were placed at the feet of Congress in this room, but that was not enough. A government had to be formed. Madison, Washington, Franklin gave us a constitution in this room, but that was not enough. A Bill of Rights had to be written. And down our history, even that was not enough. Black men were still not free, women were still not franchised, and once they were, that was not enough for a society which aspired to justice and the rule of law. The American story has been a struggle to secure for everybody the rights and liberties that were promised in this room. We may hope that it is still a rising sun. This room reminds us that the work of America is never finished.
Back in the early 60s, when I was living in Brazil and covering Latin America for CBS News, I spent my Independence days abroad. The American ambassador in most foreign countries holds a reception on the 4th of July to which U.S. citizens are invited. I remember a garden party at the ambassador's residence in Rio. The U.S. Marine Band happened to be in town giving a concert. And that 4th of July afternoon, in that American oasis in a foreign place, the band played the national anthem as the flag was raised. I don't think the flag had ever meant much to me till that afternoon. Maybe you have to see it flying bravely far from home to be affected by the sight of stars and stripes against the sky. That sight, that day, sent chills down my spine. Years later, in 1979, curious about where all those stars and stripes come from, I went looking in New Jersey. If it's stars and stripes you want, the place to find them is Annan and Company, the country's oldest and largest flag maker, which has given us millions of miles of stripes and a universe of stars for nearly 150 years. Annan made the battle flags for the Union Army, and the flag that covered Lincoln's coffin, and the first American flags to reach the North Pole, the South Pole, and the top of Mount Everest, and the first American flag on the moon. That, too, was born on the sewing machines of Verona, New Jersey, stars and stripes supplier to this and other worlds. The people who make America's flags are not named Betsy Ross, by the way. Their names are a roll call of America. Maria J. Cutt and Mary Jablonski work there in a billowing sea of red, white, and blue. Anna Volotari, Natalie Segaby, Doris Jackson. You can't hang around there very long without hearing a song in your head. That's the one. This is the place that takes that old march and makes it literal. Stars and stripes forever. We're lucky enough to live in a country which permits us to wear our patriotism lightly. I spent one 4th of July weekend on Mackinac Island, Michigan, where a big event of Independence Day is always skipping stones on the lake. A big crowd of folks, lighthearted and loose-armed, competes in the National Stone Skipping Championship. I searched the shore for the perfect stone under the critical gaze of Bill Raby, director of the Mackinac Island Stone Skipping and Gerplunking Tournament, and I did my best.
2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, about 12 on that one. That's not bad.
But it would get you nowhere in the tournament among the big boys.
Well, you might lead.
Like that.
No, really not. I'll be honest. It's rotten.
So for instruction, I turned to Glenn Hard Luck Loy Jr. of Flint, Michigan, co-holder of the world's record, 19 plinks and 5 pity pats for a total of 24 skips on one famous throw in 1977. Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Now, you'd be satisfied with that one in competition,
About 18,
right?
I'd take that one easily.
Glenn is called Hard Luck Loy because since he tied the world's record in 77, he has placed second 3 times. But he's never won the Mackinac Island Open again. Oh, beauty. Thought it would never die.
Never die.
He's back for another try, training hard. Beautiful. Glenn Loy has a job, electronics salesman, but he thinks of stone skipping as his profession.
There you go.
Beautiful, beautiful. Oh, yeah.
When people find out you're the world champion, you got a reputation to uphold. Everybody comes over and they want to skip against me now. And when I get beat, it's embarrassing.
The beach began to fill with Glenn's competitors, old pros, and young dreamers. And the great moment arrived.
The Mackinac Open Stone Skipping Tournament for professionals and amateur stone skippers. Let him who is without frisbee cast the first stone.
To the tune of Over the Waves, the tournament was on and the judges were busy. We noticed that competitors and judges never agreed on the number of skips. For example,
That's 11. Oh, for crying out, you missed those 4 pity pats on the end.
it all came down to Glenn Hard Luck Loy Jr. laying out his stones to pick the flattest and fastest for competition, while his arch rival and co-world record holder Big John Kolar stripped for action and got a rubdown from his father, very big John Kolar. Loy versus Kolar. We'll give you a montage here like CBS Sports.
A 10 for Glenn Loy. The end of the first chucker, Glenn Loy leading. Bad luck. Hard luck. A 3. Crowd move back just a little bit, please. John Kolar up, he's leading with 15.
A tie between Loy and Kolar, 15-15.
They tied on their best, second best, and third best skips. But Kolar's fourth best was 1 pity pat better, and Glenn Hard Luck Loy lived up to his nickname for another year.
I'm happy to present you with the prize of $200.
And the crowd drifted away with the sun going down, leaving one awkward, solitary figure still on the shore. I couldn't help it. I was still out there at sunset, still looking for the perfect stone. The 4ths of July I remember best are those on which pride of nation came shining through. And I found myself thinking, really thinking for a minute or two, about those who put at risk their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor to start a country for us. We've not quite lived up to their hopes, of course, but we've come close enough to make the United States the destination of choice for millions who live elsewhere in the world. More than once I've spent the 4th of July in the foothills of the Blue Ridge, on the rise Thomas Jefferson called Monticello. Every Independence Day they hold a naturalization ceremony on that hilltop. It is not mandatory to give a thought to your country on the 4th of July, but there, in Mr. Jefferson's front yard, it's pretty hard not to.
I spent yesterday, the 4th of July, at Mr. Jefferson's house in Virginia. Jefferson died on the 4th, 50 years to the day after his Declaration of Independence was read to the world, and somebody had put roses on his grave. On his front lawn, 97 people of 28 nationalities were about to become citizens of the country he declared free for us and them. Pick one of them from the crowd to see what sort of citizen we gained yesterday. Shah Wali Abdi, 29 years old, of Afghanistan. Are you excited too?
Very much so, yeah. I've been smiling all day and all the weekend.
If you think you had a full holiday weekend, consider his. To begin with, on Friday, he was married.
For richer, for poorer.
For richer, for poor.
In sickness and in health.
In sickness and in health.
Wali, raised a Muslim, stood there in the old Price Fork United Methodist Church in Blacksburg, Virginia, and was married to Angela Marie Surface Cooper, daughter of a good Montgomery County Methodist family. She is also the mother of 3 children, so just to start the weekend, Wali Abdi became both a husband and a father. Naturally, that was on the mind of our new citizen even before he became a citizen.
These children mean a lot to me. I think for me the best way to give it back to the United States is to help my wife, Angela, raise these children to become decent citizens.
Yesterday, he and Angela settled in their places on the famous hill at Charlottesville to wait for his name to be called.
Shah Wali Abdi.
With his old passport and his new marriage certificate in his hand, he attended to one last little bit of American bureaucracy.
I had 2 speeding tickets, and I paid them.
With nothing to mar his record but 3 speeding tickets, he was approved for citizenship for the final time, along with the other men and women with foreign-sounding names. And what he said, they all must have been thinking.
I feel very happy. I really feel it. I feel it in my heart. There are a lot of people who don't know, I guess, how important it is to be an American, because they're born here, they grew up with it, and they take it for granted.
He raised his right hand with the others and said a few words about renouncing every foreign prince, potentate, state, and sovereignty.
So help me God.
And the last vow of his long weekend was taken, and Wali Abdi became Wally, which his American friends have called him all along.
You have just become a citizen of the greatest country the world has ever known. This is true not because
Thomas Jefferson, as president, proposed that the United States offer hospitality and asylum to those he called oppressed humanity, unhappy fugitives from distress. I imagine that Mr. Jefferson, knowing what's going on in Afghanistan and knowing Wali Abdi as a scholar like him, would have approved of the proceedings on his lawn yesterday. 97 people from 28 countries became citizens of the United States. I got to know this one. The 4th of July made me proud for him. Proud for us, too.
Charles Kuralt's Summer was written and read by Charles Kuralt. For CBS News Productions, the coordinating producer was Hal Lewis, and the associate producer was Joseph Zorinko. The associate producer for Simon & Schuster Audio was Sloan Seaman. Charles Kuralt's Summer was co-produced by Susan Perrin and Karen Perlman. This has been an original presentation of Simon & Schuster Audio in association with CBS News Productions. Also available from Simon & Schuster Audio, Charles Kuralt's Spring, Charles Kuralt's Christmas, Charles Kuralt's America, and A Life on the Road. Look for more original Charles Kuralt productions from Simon & Schuster Audio.